During this symposium, I would like to introduce a digital tool that is called Recogito, that was developed by the Pelagios project. And through Recogito, I will show you that you can upload your document in text or image format and perform a variety of annotations. And if these annotations are about place, you'll be able to visualize these annotations on a map. But before I show you some of the possible applications of this tool in your research, I would like to say just a few words about one of the digital infrastructures that enable Recogito to work. And I'll do that because I think that it's always interesting to know how digital tools work, but also because I think that gazetteers, which is the digital infrastructure I'm going to talk about, are really an interesting topic. And if you're not familiar with gazetteers, well, they are basically indexes of places and related information. So they are just huge geographical dictionaries. And if you are a little bit underwhelmed by this definition, I hope that you will change your mind after I have talked a little bit more about how they're structured and how they work and why they are useful. So let's have a closer look at an example. And this is a screenshot from the Pleiades Gazetteer of the Ancient World, which is one of the most popular, well-known and widely used historical gazetteers in the classical world. So what do we find if we look for a place, for example, the city of Agrigentum? Well, we find a default name, we find a location that is also represented on the map. We find some variant names, which are very important if you're trying to consolidate historical documents, for example. And we find relational information, so things that are in Agrigentum and things in which Agrigentum is. But possibly the most important bit of information that we find on this page is actually this one, which is the place URI. And URI stands for Uniform Resource Identifier. It is basically a code, a unique code that identifies unambiguously this place. And when we use these codes to create semantic references to places in our documents, then we are able to express in a very clear way, so clear that even a machine, a computer, an API, an algorithm can understand that we're talking exactly about this place. And to give you a slightly more concrete example, if you see that beautiful picture on the right of the page that shows one of the temples in Agrigentum, that picture had not been uploaded on the page by the editors of the Pleiades Gazetteer. It has been uploaded on Flickr by a user, but it has been tagged with the URI for this place. In this way, the API of Pleiades has recognized that that photograph had a relationship with this place and has built the connection. And gazetteers are pretty good at expressing what we know about place and disambiguating our references to place. For example, we can use gazetteers to say that the city of London and the city of Londra are actually the same place, even though for an API, for a machine, they are not a perfect match because they are made of different letters, so the string is not identical. But if we refer to the place using the URI from a gazetteer, like the GeoNames gazetteer, which is a contemporary gazetteer, we're able to say unequivocally that they are the same place. Similarly, we can say that the city of London in the UK and the city of London in the US are not indeed the same place. And we can express that using two different URIs, while, for example, in a string search, they might come up as identical. So I hope that now you think that gazetteers are, a little bit more interesting than just plain lists, and how useful they are in disambiguating place references, and you can see how potentially they can help us improving metadata in galleries, museums, and so on, but also how they have, they are an interesting object in their own right, because they really help us recording and formalizing our understanding of something, quite complex, like our idea of places, especially in a diachronic perspective. In fact, if you think about it, are the places of, the ancient place of Londinium and the contemporary place of London actually the same place? I mean, they definitely share roughly the same, coordinates, the same location, but would you say that they are the same, let's say, spatial temporal entity? Maybe not. And I think that it makes perfect sense that these two places, these two entities, have two different URIs, one that is minted by the Pelagios gazetteer of the ancient world, and one that is minted by a contemporary gazetteer like GeoNames. Now, bear in mind these, very, very brief introduction to gazetteers that I've given you, because hopefully this will help us understanding better what goes on with Recogito. I'm now gonna leave the presentation and bring you inside Recogito. So Recogito is an online platform. You don't need any installation. You just type the recogito.pelagios.org, create your account, and you are ready to create annotations. I'm not going to give you actually a tutorial of how to use Recogito because we wouldn't have enough time, but there are a number of tutorials available. I would be very happy to give you more information about it. What I'm going to do now is just give you an overview of examples of possible applications of the functionalities of Recogito in historical research. So the only thing that I'm going to show you is how to create the most basic form of annotation in Recogito, which is let's dive into this. This is a text that I have uploaded. It is the 7th book of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides. Apologies for the classics example. So to create a place annotation, you just highlight the string in the text that you want to annotate, and you get this pop-up that asks you to categorize your annotation. You can also have uncategorized annotations, but it is very useful, for example, to tell Recogito that you want to talk about a place, because in that case, what happens is that Recogito tries to match the string that you have selected with a number of gazetteers that are embedded in its system. However, the match that Recogito is suggesting, which is Syracuse in the US, is definitely not the one that Thucydides was talking about. So let's go to change and look at other possible matches. We can use the list, we can use the map, and the one that we want is definitely the one that is in Sicily. So we can select it, and you see we have 3 different gazetteers here, and that is because, as we have seen before for London, these 3 gazetteers talk about place entities that are located, at the same coordinates, but they are, let's say, platonically different ideas of places. And the one that we want is the one that is, let's say, closer to the idea of Syracuse that Thucydides had. So I would say the Pelagios one. Now we have created an annotation, we have an author, we have a timestamp. It's just like a micro-publication that you can always, link and trace. You can also add a tag. Okay, let's follow the suggestion. And now you have a tag. I'm showing you the tags just because they're going to, we're going to use them for visualization purposes as well. So let's say, okay. And if there are other occurrences in the text of what you've just annotated, Recogito will ask you if you want to reapply it, including the tags. You can manage very well what you want and don't want to reapply, but I'm not going to show you that. You can find all this information in the tutorials, just to show you that now we have all the words Syracuse that have been annotated, and they also have the tag CD. Now, let's imagine that we had enough time to actually annotate all the places, or most of the places that are referenced and mentioned in this text. And to show you what happens then, I will use the work of my students that have actually done that. I hope they have done it correctly. And if you switch to the map view, you can start benefiting from one of the most interesting features in Recogito, which is the possibility of visualizing your place annotations from text straight to a map. And you can see that some dots are bigger than others, and that is because they have more annotations referring to it. And if we click on it, or there it is, our Syracuse, we know that it has been annotated 16 times, and we can switch, we can browse from one to the other. We can even jump back to the text. And we didn't input the information about the coordinates of Syracuse when we performed our annotations. We simply established a relationship between a string in the text, a word in the text, and a gazetteer URI. And all the information that was in the gazetteer has been sort of harvested by Recogito for this visualization. And you can see that this already gives you an idea of, what are the places that are mentioned in a text, what are the most relevant, how distant they are from each other. This basic visualization already gives us some insights from a spatial perspective on the information that is in a text, in a source. We could also annotate images, of course. But I'm going to quickly show you a couple of other kind of visualizations that you can use in Recogito to give, even more interesting insights. And one is about using tags, as I showed you before. You can add as many tags as you want in Recogito, but for visualization purposes, only the first tag will matter. And you can use tags just to make your visualization clearer, which is, of course, already a very important goal. And I'm very happy to show you one of my absolute favorite maps, which is an adorable map of the Mediterranean. And some of the cities have been annotated. And when we go into the map view, which makes it more recognizable, maybe as a Mediterranean map, we can choose to change our visualization and color by tag. In this case, we can, assign a different color to, for example, the more certain and the less certain identifications and so on. So we have still more or less the same visualization, but we have made it clear. We can also use tags actually to investigate our text a little bit more. And I'm going to show you another example. And these are the place annotations that have been produced on one of the books that the Italian Renaissance artist Giorgio Vasari compiled, and they collect the biographies of other artists of his time. This is one of those books, the second book, and we can already, gain some insights looking at the places that are mentioned in the book and seeing, how incredibly prominent, of course, Florence is. But at the same time, if we choose to color by tag, and during the annotation, we can decide, okay, we want to highlight one particular aspect of our annotation, and for example, give a different tag to the places where the artists were born and the place where the artist worked. And we can see now that there is not much overlap about those places and what kind of questions this information might stimulate in our research. Moving quickly to another function in Recogito, you can upload more than one file at a time. And when you upload multiple files all together, what happens is this, that you have the files still, different and singular, but you also produce a sort of meta document. In this case, this is a group of inscriptions that have been found in the same way. And when we go to the visualization, they are all visualized together as if they were basically a corpus that we have created. And if we go into our visualization cog and choose to visualize by part, then we see that to each of the original documents has been associated a different color, so that we can see exactly what places correspond to what particular document. And to give you another example of this using images, this is an annotation of the Cornero Atlas that is at the British Library. And here is a visualization of all the annotations. That looks quite nice. And if we go into the color by part, we can see the places that are represented in each of the different folios. And when you see a white dot, that means that that place appears in more than one source. And sometimes that means that they are the most interesting bits. And by the way, I just wanted to show you that as for the text, when you click on the map, you see a snippet of the text. Same thing happens with images, which is another quite nice feature. Okay, I think I have time to show you one more thing. Which is another annotation mode in Recogito, which is the relations. You can switch here to relations and create them. And I'm going to show you how they look like. This is an annotation of the archaeological account of Petrie in Egypt. So what relations do, they basically enable you to connect to entities that you have already annotated and define that relationship and also give it a direction. Now, this can be used as a way for you to deep read a document and really extract what are the most interesting relationships there. But it is also a kind of information that can be downloaded and post-processed, and I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. So this text has been quite thoroughly annotated, and we could look at how those annotations look like traditionally, so we can see what places are mentioned. We could also, I'm using this as an excuse also to show you that you can change the base map, and you can look at the annotations in relationship to the terrain, to the how close the Nile was, and so on. But a great added value of Recogito is that you can also download your annotations and all the information that you have produced in a number of formats that can be post-processed and visualized in other ways. And in particular, the relations can be downloaded in formats that enable you to create networks, if you like. And I think I can show you, I'm not a network person. This is a very, very naive kind of network visualization, but it's just to show you that this is a different kind of visualization that we have produced from the same text, and that there are, different ways of analyzing spatial relationship and different, ways to produce complementary information, sometimes using the same tool. Okay, I cheated. I still have another thing, but I swear this is actually the last one. I just wanted to show you that when you have gazetteers that are granular enough, so when you have gazetteers that move at a very precise level, they go to the level of single buildings instead of settlements, then you can produce quite interesting visualizations as well. We don't have many examples of gazetteers that go to that level of granularity, but one exception is the city of Pompeii, that has been quite thoroughly covered by historical gazetteers in Pelagios. And I just wanted to show you potentially how an annotation of a city looks like. And there is some. And what I'm showing you is the annotation of an historical tourist guide of the city of Pompeii that shows us the annotations right next to the building they refer to. And I used to work on historical buildings, so this I find this extremely exciting. And you can, for example, click here and read the annotations. Okay, I think that my time is up now. As I said, this was really just a very quick overview. If you're interested, I'm very happy to share more information about tutorials and other learning material. So thank you.